Whom you can trust is a very, very important issue, because as you get older, you're going to discover that you need to trust in people. You need their help in different ways. You need to be thinking early on as to whom you can trust and whom is not worthy of your trust. Whom you can trust in certain areas and whom you can trust in other areas. There are essentially two issues insofar as trust is concerned. Trust in someone's speech, that is, trust that they will tell you the truth, and trust in someone's actions. That is, trust that at some future point somebody will do something or not do something, as the case may be. Right? Okay, let's talk about trust in someone's speech. It's very important to develop friendships, close relationships with people who will tell you the truth. You would think that this is easy, but it's actually very, very difficult. And you know why it's so difficult? Because people love you. The people close to you don't want to hurt your feelings. You know, you're wearing a nice suit, or what you think is a nice suit, and a nice shirt, and nice everything, and nice shoes, and you go up to your mother or somebody, and you ask, how do I look? And they say, oh, you look fantastic, and you look like a fucking idiot, right? Or it could be, well, you get the picture. They tell you lies. They violate your trust, if you want to get all pompous about it. Not because they're bad people, but because they don't want to hurt your feelings. Now, here's something else, and this is potentially a very serious flaw that I've seen in a number of people. Sometimes people become very, very upset when they hear the truth. And so what happens is that the people around them refrain from telling them the truth when it's negative. They only tell them, you know, pretty things. This happens with incompetent leaders. They surround themselves with yes men. Why? Because whenever they've had somebody who tells them the truth, and it's a truth that goes against their preferences or what they desire, they get upset, and they get angry at the person who told them the truth. And so what happens, it's a lesson to everybody else to keep your mouth shut. Never tell the truth if it's, you know, something that the boss doesn't like. And so that way, that person, that leader, that person in a position of authority, he winds up drifting through the world with a completely skewed view of reality until eventually that reality will, you know, knock him upside the head and knock him out, right? You have to be careful that that never happens to you. You always want to cultivate people who will tell you the truth, especially the truths you don't want to hear. And when you hear those truths that you don't want to hear, you have to nod and never, ever, ever get upset with the person telling you. Cultivating somebody who will tell you the truth is a difficult task, but you do it all the time with your friends. Have you noticed that with friends, you talk about your favorite books, your favorite movies, your favorite albums, whatever, and you talk and talk and talk, and you're constantly talking about the world around you, and you're constantly talking about the news, and you're talking about this and that. Why do you think you're doing that? Because in a very real sense, what you are doing is developing the sense of how your friend views reality. So that later, when you are in a situation where you need someone's vision of what is happening, somebody's perspective on what's happening to you, you will get someone whose perspective you understand and respect. See, this is what's going to happen to you. And this happens all the time. Say you have like a business deal. And it's a great business deal where you're going to make a shitload of money and you're just so happy as a clam. And it's just this terrific business deal, you think, because you want it so badly. But the fact is that if there was somebody else looking at it from outside, unbiased, they'd realize that it's a con. They'd realize that you're about to get fleeced out of all your money. You see? This happens all the time. How many times have you been, you know, in a situation where somebody, you know, comes at you with, like, say, a pyramid scheme, and they say to you, oh man, all you need to do is put $200 and in a month's time you'll get $1,000. And you're like, oh man, this sounds too good to be true, but oh no, it can't be true, but okay, I'll put my money in. And then of course you lose it. Perhaps that hasn't happened to you yet, but it'll happen to you. That happens to most everybody. That they get offered a deal that is too good to be true. This is what con men do all the time. They make you believe in something so wonderful that it cancels out your better sense, your sense of like what's possible and what's not, what's realistic and what's not. See? So that's why you need a friend whose perspective you understand and respect, whose perspective so often as not is the same as yours, so that you can go to him, to this friend of yours, Joe, and say, Joe, look, this is the deal that's been offered to me, and this is the principles, these are the issues, what do you think of this? Because you need him to look it over and say to you, hey, you're going to get fleeced, you're going to get cheated, it's a con, don't you see it? Because a lot of times you won't see it, you see? So that's why you need somebody who can tell you the truth. You have to develop that person whose vision of the world is very similar to your own. Somebody, or better yet, somebody whose vision is even more correct and precise than your own. So you can ask them for their help. Ask them for their help in the sense of giving you a wider perspective as to what is going on. You don't want people who will tell you pleasant sounding bullshit all the time. Those people, you got to cut them out. Okay? Sometimes they're the people who love you the most. Your parents, they always say bullshit because they love you. Okay? And so, of course, a lot of times you can't trust them in that sense, in telling you the truth, because they don't want to hurt your feelings, because they want only the best for you. Perhaps they themselves are so skewed in their visions of what can happen to you and what you can achieve that they're not going to give you a realistic perspective, you see? So those people who you cannot trust to tell you the truth, for whatever reason. I'm not saying that they're all malicious. On the contrary, there are relatively few people on this earth who are going to give you a malicious perspective just to fuck with you. Of course, people who don't like you and your enemies, sure, they will, but of your friends, I mean, that's, you know, but you see my point. You have to find those people whose vision you can trust. Now, insofar as whom you can trust insofar as actions are concerned, this is tricky. Because this is always about the future. An action that is occurring now, by definition you can trust them because they're helping you or doing it right this second. The issue becomes, whom can you trust insofar as doing something or not doing something in the future? Suppose, just to give you an example, you know Joe, and you have a safety deposit box with $500,000. And you tell Joe, look, hold on to the key of this safety deposit box, okay, because I got to go somewhere and I can't take it or whatever, you know. Can you trust Joe not to go and steal the $500,000 in the safety deposit box? You see? Well, what do you need for that? You need to know Joe real well. You need to know what kind of a man Joe is. Does his word, does his promise count? If he says something today, will he live up to it tomorrow? You have to know. So the only way you can know if Joe is going to steal your $500,000 in the safety deposit box is by having a relationship with Joe that's long enough and deep enough that you have a fairly clear idea. If you're not sure about somebody, then why take the chance? You see what I mean? A lot of people trust in others recklessly, foolishly. They know Joe for like a month, and here's the key to the safety deposit box. Please make sure not to steal it. How crazy is that? But people do it all the time. Look around you. Maybe you yourself have trusted in someone whom you barely know. You trusted in that person, and that person betrayed your trust. Whose fault is it? Theirs or yours? Yours, because you didn't look at them carefully enough. You have to look at people carefully. You have to study them. And that's only an issue that can happen over time. You can never trust people right out of the gate. Or let me phrase that. You should act towards everyone whom you meet as if you trust them. But when the rubber meets the road, when you actually have something at stake, you have to be very, very cautious. In other words, you have to be open to all whom you meet. But at the same time, when an actual instance of something important comes around, and you have to trust in somebody, you have to trust in somebody that you know. Not think, not hope, not, fingers crossed. No, no, no. You actually know that they will live up to their word. That they will do in the future what you expect them to do in the future. Don't ever deal with people whom you cannot trust insofar as important things are that are important to you. Okay? Don't deal with such people. Don't mix them up in your business. Don't mix them up in your life. For instance, a simple example. Say a woman, you love this woman deeply. Can you trust her that you're away on a business trip for a week? Can you trust her to not go off and fuck some other guy? If you're wondering, then obviously the answer is you can't trust her. There's a saying, when there is doubt, there is no doubt. You see my point? If you think that maybe she might cheat on you, then you can't trust her. Then therefore, she should not be in your life. Never be with a woman whom you are worried is going to be cheating on you. If you're worried that the woman is going to be cheating on you, then you're just going to have a miserable life. And what exactly is the point of that? Okay? Now that's insofar as women are concerned. More important things. Men, other men. You have to make sure that you can trust them, and you can only figure that out over time. And you can only figure it out by seeing what they have done in other situations. Because keep in mind, sometimes, a man can fail to keep his word, but he gave it his complete effort and he failed just because of bad luck. For instance, just a simple example. Suppose, Jimmy over here, promised to go and pick up Sam at the airport, but it turned out that Jimmy, on the way to the airport, his car broke down, got a flat tire or something like that. And so he couldn't go and pick up Sam at the airport. So what he did was, he hopped on a cab. He finally hailed down a cab to get to the airport. But by the time he finally got to the airport, Sam had arrived at the airport, found no Jim, got pissed off, grabbed the cab of his own and went home. But it turns out when you hear the whole story, you realize that Jim gave it his all and he just failed in that particular task because of circumstances. Well, then he's a man to be trusted. It's not a scorecard, okay? The guy doesn't have to make all the baskets. Just a good try is good enough. But see, when somebody has all of the opportunities to deliver and they fail to deliver, then that guy, you don't want to mess with him at all. He's just somebody that you know. Never a friend, never a close associate, and never, ever, ever trust somebody who has already betrayed somebody else. It's just like a woman. If a woman cheated on her previous boyfriend to be with you, then she's going to cheat on you to be with the next boyfriend. Same with men. If you see a man who failed in a promise, who failed the trust of somebody else, then he's going to fail your trust. Don't hang out with such a man. Don't depend on such a man. Okay? Now, in this one, I've talked about whom you can trust. In the next one, or a future one, I'm going to talk about the issue of whom you can depend on, which is very different.